This week we've got the CEO of OmniConverts, Valentin Radu, along with me. So we're gonna have a little conversation about what are some of the most important KPIs to focus on in e-commerce. So let me ask you this, Valentin. What has been one of the bigger barriers for growth that you've seen a lot of e-commerce managers have?
Well, I think by far, and this is by far, the biggest problem that they have is their own mentality and their own knowledge about growing a business. So e-commerce it's a business in itself. So it doesn't matter if it's using the online for distributing the products and acquiring customers. It's a business, and the mathematical model of the business should be really, really well made. So mainly if you are unable to understand which are the growth factors, if you're unable to measure them correctly, if you're not focusing on the right numbers and the right KPIs, then you can't grow a business.
Wasn't it as simple as more acquisition, getting more traffic to your website? That's what all the Google AdWords and the paid campaigns for LinkedIn.
Yeah, that's the mantra. But if your services are not that good, and if you're unaware that customers are not going to buy only because they are seeing you everywhere, then you should have like a competitive pricing, or you should have trust. You should build trust, and that means branding, or you should grow your commerce after your customers are placing the third or the fourth order. So if you are unaware about these KPIs like customer satisfaction or customer retention rate or lifetime value, then you just pour money into the pockets of Google, Facebook, and whatever.
So there's probably 20 different KPIs that you can be watching.
Yeah.
But how do you prioritize those, and where do you begin, or which ones do you think are most successful to watch?
Well, the first one, I would say it's about customer satisfaction. So if I recently talked with an e-commerce manager which had a huge problem with their CEO, because their CEO wanted to invest more heavily into advertising because the competition was fierce for them, and they wanted to pour money into advertising. And I've asked him why, and he said, because we wanted to stop losing customers to our competitors. So are your competitors advertising? No. So why do you lose your customers? So, and he said, well, we don't know. So how come you try to fix a problem without knowing what the real problem is and what is causing it, by simply putting more money into advertising and doing TV campaigns? So mainly they should be looking at the customer satisfaction and what is the customer experience first, and then to, I don't know, change the product lines, change the providers, change the delivery companies that they are using, or simply change the branding and positioning, or pour more money into traffic. So mainly traffic is not the answer to all the problems of e-commerce.
So you're always trying to increase the customer satisfaction, right? So you have 3.5 stars as your average customer satisfaction. You want to go to 3.6. If you have 4.4, you're always going to go to 4.5.
Yeah.
What's the difference? Don't you always want to? How do you use that?
I think what is important is to check the benchmarks and to see where you are staying right now, because let's presume your customer satisfaction is 3.3, but you are in an industry where it's 3.3 as well. So mainly, if you are in the market, maybe you shouldn't be doing many more efforts to increase this customer satisfaction. Of course, it's outstandingly important. I mean, it's hugely important to have a bigger customer satisfaction rate. But at some point, your extra efforts will not pay off. So if you are in any range between, I don't know, 4.5 and 4.8 or 5, then you need to fix, as an e-commerce manager or even as a founder, you have a lot of fires to stop, and you can't stop them all at the same time. But you should be looking at the first things first.
So that's one important KPI: customer satisfaction surveys that you have running autonomously.
Yeah, net promoter score would be important, because this will also show you the balance between detractors and promoters, right? Because maybe you have like your average satisfaction score would be like meh, and if it's like this, you can't see it with customer satisfaction surveys which are linear. But in the net promoter score, you subtract the number of detractors from the number of promoters. So in this manner, and you simply don't take into account the passive customers, the neutrals. So that's why NPS, I think, it's better.
Okay, so with NPS, you're looking at, you said you don't pay attention to the neutrals, right? So those that are like 3 stars or 3 out of 5.
Yeah, in the NPS, it's actually, the NPS scale is from 0 to 10. So that means the ones which are giving you 7 or 8 are not going to be considered.
Oh, okay. So
At
you're
all.
kind of balancing how many are
0 to 6
0 to 6
and 9 to 10.
9.
So mainly that's it. If you just said that I'm giving you a 7 or an 8, you don't not you're not taking into.
It seems to me like that would be a positive score, though.
It seems, but it's not. It's like meh, you know. And in e-commerce, why do you measure NPS? You measure NPS because this is the KPI that will show you the future. Yeah, it's showing you the chances that your existing customers will promote you to their acquaintances and colleagues and friends or whatever.
Yeah.
So that means €0 invested in advertising through this customer. And the best advertising is word of mouth, right? So the recommendations are the most powerful. Like according to Nielsen, 40% of customers are trusting advertising in any form, while 95% of them are trusting their colleagues and friends. So beat this.
Okay. So other than Net Promoter Score, another really important KPI to keep an eye on?
Well, if you're in e-commerce, of course, if you're selling physical goods, you might want to look at the stock rotation. So how fast can you rotate the stocks, and how fast can you buy more goods so that you can sell? Because at some point, if your demand is not in a close relation with your inventory, then you have a problem. If your demand is way too high and your inventory is low, that means you are burning a lot of money on advertising, but you don't have anything to sell to those guys. While vice versa, if your stocks are like crazy, so you have a lot of goods, but your traffic is low, you need is this balance. Because at the end, an e-commerce is the bridge between customers and products.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you need to keep them in balance.
But wouldn't that tell you just to buy more stock, or wouldn't that be the signal
Yeah,
to the manager?
Yeah, it would tell you this, but you need to keep an eye on this and to see what is the stock rotation and which are the most important categories, what kind of products are the best sellers, because we should buy more of that, you know. And that's an important KPI as well.
So what is one of the most overlooked KPIs that you think most people that are new to CRO or optimization kind of overlook, that you think is really important to keep an eye on?
Yeah, I think one important KPI is the customer retention rate. I mean, how many of your customers are placing like the third or the fourth order with you? Because the retention curve is hugely important. So if you fix that, you fix the whole business.
And so how do you, because again, with most KPIs, you're always looking for better.
Yeah.
Right? So how do you know what is good enough and when to start investing
Well,
in another
the
KPI?
benchmark for the retention rate is like 30%. So but you also have the top players like Amazon or ASOS.com, and they have like more than 90%. So that means their retention out of 10 new customers, 9 will return to place the second order, while the average in the market is 3 out of 10. And what is your retention rate? How do you stand against Amazon, or how do you stand, because there are different verticals. Like in furniture, it's okay to be like 25%, but in I don't know, for a pet shop, it's dramatic if it's less than 50%. So you should also look at the retention rate according to your vertical.
Mm-hmm. So and that information is probably available with any industry report.
If you're searching for it, you're gonna find it. I mean, this kind of information, it's important, and that's why I've told you that in the beginning that the most important problem that e-commerce managers have in order to grow their business is the fact that they lack either the know-how, either the mentality. Because if you don't have the right knowledge, and if you're not modeling your business based on the growth factors and based on the data, the real data, because now we have access to a lot of data, but we are not using it, and we keep on doing the same things expecting for other results, which is of course crazy.